And don't forget, you can also download the Wrenchport mobile app to follow along with live timing, but also to get some rather unique insight into the world of ESL R1. You can grab 3 autographed signatures on a hero card. I've already selected mine. Curious to hear what you would do. One other thing that you can do in the Wrenchport app as you register your account is select which of the 4 GT3 cars you would like to pick. George, which one did you grab?
Oh, you have to do this to me, Arjuna. That is absolutely disgraceful. No, I'm joking. I actually picked the Audi R8 LMS as well, so that's the car I picked. But you know what, I haven't had yet much of a chance to do it at home, but I have been practicing here live at the arena, and I'm having a wheel of a time with it. It's great.
I grabbed the Porsche, so at least there's some mix-ups here. We'll see what Lewis and Ewan grabbed. One thing that we should note as we get ready to go for qualifying, we have reiterated on a couple of occasions, penalty points have carried over from the first 2 days. Those were accumulated by the drivers in the Drivers' Championship, and Peter Berryman, with a couple of penalties and some significant penalties as well, has been the first to be hit by a qualifying ban.
I tell you what, that does certainly throw a spanner in the works, and certainly for Apex Racing Team, who came off the back of Kevin Ellis Jr. picking up a crucial win, and now Peter Berryman essentially will not be taking part in qualifying. This will put them on the back foot, and of course in a team's championship you need every competitor on hand. This is going to make his race that much harder.
Hey, Peter Berryman, the 2021 Force Dynamics Dallara iRacing Grand Prix champion, now came 12th in that previous race, had a bit of a issue earlier on and really fell back with loss of momentum. Apex Racing Team currently have 34 points. Remember, top 6 will advance on to tomorrow's action to fight for their share of $600,000. Mao's currently in 6th position on 47 points, 1 point back are G2 Esports.
Yeah, not far away at all. It's very close up at the sharp end as well. Let's take a look at that team's championship. R8G 98, as you can see, spearheading the way after what has to be said a stellar run so far. And bringing in, of course, we saw him briefly towards the tail end of the season. Of course, Thibaut Casabon, who very nearly took the race win, Arjuna. Of course, remember, they had Risto Capit during the spring season, didn't necessarily perform the way they would have wanted to. This new capture that came in at the end of the spring season has been oh so vital to this run of the team championship.
Risto Capit's still very busy. He's competing in Formula E Accelerate today, so they've swapped out the drivers and maybe found a new home for Risto Capit. Thibaut Casabon, very welcome, of course, in this ESL R1 paddock. There's a look at the drivers getting ready to go for qualifying. Let's talk to you a little bit more, I guess, about the Hockenheim Ring, and a track that has a lot of history when it comes to championships. I'll go back in time to when Alan Prost ran out of fuel in the days when Formula 1 was limited. Those championship points that he got by pushing his car across the line, enough for him to grab his 2nd world championship.
Incredible. They probably wouldn't allow you to do that today, but nevertheless, still absolutely remarkable from him. This layout, of course, that we're driving around has been active since 2002 till the present day, as qualifying now gets underway, Arjuna.
Yes, and so I think Dane Warren seems to be the first to fire on out. He grabbed the first pole position of the day yesterday as we fought for our Drivers' Championship, but in our only race that we had at the Hockenheim Ring, at least for him, Dane Warren only able to grab 6th. Someone that's blown a little bit hot and cold over the course of the season.
Yep, Dane Warren certainly has done, but qualifies extremely well. You'd be foolish to count this man out over a 1-lap pace. Of course, his race pace is known to be reasonable too, but he is known to have luck throw certainly misfortune come into his way on a few occasions, and has certainly felt that, I think, in the run-up to the Drivers' Championship fight. Of course, he watched his teammate Joshua Rogers go on and come unstuck heading around the Nürburgring as well. We will, of course, see Joshua Rogers later on here tonight, as we now see Dane Warren make his way out of the hairpin section, the slowest section, certainly at this circuit out of Turn 6. They're making his way down through towards Turn 7, where he'll eventually meet the Mercedes Arena.
And we've got 2 Mercedes-Benz arenas here, well, at least in Wrenchport. We got, of course, the one here at the Hockenheim Ring. Let's not forget the one at the Nürburgring as well. Very different sort of complexes, though, especially with the track limits with which you can use. 20.350 in the first sector for Dane Warren. Relatively strong as he tries to break into the low 136s, potentially into the 135s. That second sector, though, of a 45.477, seemingly lining him up a little bit on the wrong side of the 136 bracket. But with Warren, as George mentioned, so quick in this qualifying process. It's through these final couple of corners where he will really look to try and hustle. It can be very slippery here, not just if you go wide onto the drag strip, but especially if you get yourself too clambering over to the curbs. For Dane Warren to the line in that Porsche Coanda Esports number 57, the line in the sand about to be drawn. Not exactly sure what the time is, but seemingly, I think, around a 136.
Yeah, a 132 in accordance to what I'm seeing at the bottom right hand of our screen, a 133 as it calculates upwards, 136 indeed. lead, but now looking as we now see Jeffrey Rierveld, I'm going to call this man the Phoenix, because he has certainly risen after a difficult spring season, now making his way through this echelon now, and unfortunately, in that first sector, 20.2 would be deemed a good time, unfortunately sending a 21.8, suffering from a slowdown perhaps, a tap on the head, he knows he made a mistake.
And I think that's going to see Rietveld start not last, but maybe penultimate in front of Peter Berryman. Lots of work for Redline to do, but with that last race result, they've been able to insert themselves into the top 6. Bono House, no such concerns in terms of slowdowns, but is tracking to be about 3/10 off of Dane Warren in that Mercedes AMG Petronas. Number 10 for the Dutchman out of the final corner. So successful open wheel racing. It's going to be, again, around that 136 bracket. We'll get the time in a moment as he soars his way to the line. It's a 2.71, a 10.5 off.
Bono who's incidentally having a better Sector 1 than Dane Warren, but unfortunately it all came unstuck through Sector 2 and 3. Still nonetheless though a reasonable time to set himself in second place, just well within 1.5 tenths. Oscar Bixrud, one of the youngest members on this track, only recently turned 17 years old, competed in the Spring Series at the tender age of 16. One of the rising stars certainly in the world of sim racing as Oscar Bixrud comes up towards the line. First sector not ideal, certainly not ideal in the second sector. A 30.5 though is better in the third sector, but only enough to put him third fastest.
He was very physical in the first race of the group. How will he fare? Potentially further back, almost half a second off. Here's Joni Tormela, very quick in the middle sector of the lap. First sector of the lap, slightly slower in that middle sector in the G2 Esports car. Remember, they are 1 point off of the top 6, very much locked into a fight with Mouse Esports. We'll compare Tormela and Lohner in a couple of moments' time. It's going to be the wrong side of the 136.3s. It's a 136.4 flat.
Yeah, Thibaut Casabon will be up next after Joni Tormela. Of course, Tormela's going to have a little bit of work to do there in third place, but this man as well, entering the RHG fold, certainly in ESL R1, coming towards the end of the spring season, taking over of that of Risto Cap at the first sector, looking pretty sour, however, 2/10 away from where we would generally see the times nestling their way, but a middle sector which isn't horrendous. 45.4 would have been better, but heading up towards the line now for Thibaut Casabon. Sector 3, a 30.3 is a stellar Sector 3 as he goes third fastest.
That was an important final sector as well to be able to jump himself a little bit closer to Bono House. Just 2,000ths off there. Kuba Brzezinski, dramatic Thursday for him as he worked his way into the top 12 of our Drivers' Championship. Was a little bit more of a struggle yesterday, all things considered. First sector on the pace, second sector a couple of tenths off, but it is going to be in that benchmark of those top 3. 1.5 tenths splits the fastest 3 so far, and Kuba Brzezinski, the next driver into the 136.3s, but it is only a 3.53.
Yeah, next up after that we have Pedro Sanchez, one of the faces of the Monaco Sim Racing World Cup, competed as well in the 24-hour of Barcelona that I commentated on only a couple of years ago, and Pedro Sanchez Albert representing the Spanish contingent here for BMW BS Plus competition as he now rounds the final couple of bends here. 20.2 is looking good in the first sector of 45.8, however, looks like slightly sour, crossing the line. Where's this going to put him as he does head into P7? Not enough, and outside by 6.5 tenths. I think he'll be slightly disappointed there.
I think we're a bit disappointed to not see Pedro Sanchez Albert on that lower third. Here's Moritz Lohner, mentioned that he is the one to track compared to Joni Tormela in the fight to very much establish yourself in the top 6 in this team championship. 47 versus 46 points so far. 24 in that first sector, a couple of tenths off what we've seen, but the middle sector very much making up for it. Lohner dances the Audi through the final corner, and as he runs his way to the line, punches his ticket into the 136.2s, but it's only going to be second for him.
Gustavo Ariel up next. He, of course, one of the drivers that we have pinned down to watch at 20.2 is very competitive in the first sector. Of course, Sector 2 now is what he'll need to register as he makes his way through towards this next sequence. Of course, heading through Mercedes Arena. He'll then dip through now towards turns 9, turn 10. Coming up next, the Brazilian representing Furia. Of course, a home country. Where Furia come from as well as a team. They all came across, remember, to compete at Katowice for the very first ESL R1 event, the first LAN event that we witnessed, where of course they would try and get themselves further, but Furia have been on the rise. A 45.830 is certainly not ideal, 4 tenths outside of where the benchmark should be. Sector 3 though could yet turn something around. This could filter him in with the likes of Oscar Bixrud down in 7th place. Will need a huge final sector to raise himself higher than that. Little mistake though on the exit of turn 16 as he crosses the line, Gustavo Ariel, and that's a 30.5 in that final sector, and that's a 136.549 that places him certainly above Oscar Bixrud, 7th fastest.
do note that we saw a little bit more of the lap there because Peter Berryman not able to roll out in qualifying. A little bit of a gap there in the order. Jem Bullock-Bassey going to be the very final driver to punch in a time. That middle sector, kind of a couple of tenths off where we would expect it maybe, but that first sector somewhat competitive to the 20.2 that we do expect. He had some success on Thursday. He was surprised to be able to work his way into the top 5 after penalties, but for Jem Bullock-Bassey, it's a 1:36.647, maybe more where he expects to be. Half a second off a pole where Dane Warren once again sits with our fastest lap presented by ALJ.
It's not his first, it surely won't be his last. Dane Warren on pole here at the Hockenheim ring, and has done it in grandiose style as well to bring Porsche Coanda closer and closer to the front end. Of course, they're all vying for that team's championship. 600k on the line. Take us through the grid, Arjuna.
Well, no time for Peter Berryman. He rolls from the very back, alongside from Jeffrey Rietveld, who's got plenty of work to do, with Team Redline needing those points. Pedro Sanchez in his final race, potentially in ESL R1 inside of Jem Bullock-Bassey, while Oscar Bixford, the 16-year-old, is alongside with Gustavo Ariel. Front 3 rows, Yoni Tormala and then Kuba Brzezinski line up on row 3, while Thibaut Casabon has very much impressed us here so far in Riyadh. He's got Bono House alongside. Moritz Lohner needs to deliver in that Audi. He delivered in qualifying, but not as well as Dane Warren, the fastest of them all. And another ALJ fastest qualifying lap goes the way of the Porsche Coanda Esports Australian.
Yeah, they've been a fantastic asset, certainly to ESL R1 as a team. They have been stellar. Dane Warren looking to try and elevate them further. Can they get themselves to the front end? A massive 25 points would go a long way to this team as they look to move their way through the championship.
And what a journey for Dane Warren. Left Australia earlier this year to go and join up with Josh Rogers, Mitchell de Jong, and of course Mac Backham in that Porsche Coanda Esports Hub at Gronau, and it's been a really interesting journey for him. Let's talk a little bit more about the Hockenheim ring for a second. About 4.5 kilometers, 17 turns, and we saw through the middle sector just how tight and twisty it can be, but we've seen so far over the previous 2.5 days that you can somehow make it 3 wide.
I like to call it Jekyll and Hyde, Arjuna, because in the first sector, of course, well, in fact, split the track in 2. The first half of the track is full of a straight. Most of it, the parabolica at turn 5. The final half of the circuit, of course, you've got the tight twisting section heading through Mercedes Arena. You then head through towards the stadium section as well at Sachs Curve. Now, this is where we like to see some of the overtakes being made. Turn 12 is an opportunity, not to mention turns 13 and 14. If you have a slow exit at the Sud Curve at turn 16, it can really impact you heading down the straight, but I'm sure we'll see plenty heading around the infamous parabolica into the hairpin at turn 6.
That is, of course, where Peter Berryman accumulated plenty of his penalty points a couple of days ago. Drivers practice a couple of standing starts here as well, because with that standing start in towards turn number 1, it's going to be very interesting, filtering side by side to see how they're all going to work. Of course, let's not forget that they are not just fighting for themselves, they are fighting for their teams to represent one another in that quest for $600,000. Tomorrow, our champion walks away with $250,000.
Ideal, it has to be said. I tell you what, I wouldn't mind a piece of that. But at the end of the day, these are the professionals for a reason. We just saw Max Benneker as well, who went on to become the drivers' champion in yesterday's affair. But as the drivers now look to get set, the lights are about to go red. Arjuna, I'm going to throw it over to you. I tell you what, I think we're going to be in for a treat.
We have only got 3 more races left to find out which 6 teams will battle to become the ESL R1 sponsored by Aramco team champions. The lights will build, the engines rev once again, and we drop the hammer at the Hockenheim ring. It's a great start from Dane Warren instantly, but Moritz Lohner slots into line, does not want to let the Mercedes AMG Petronas car get a look up the inside into the opening corner. Somehow, we went single file throughout the entirety of the field, but now here comes the send. Here come some of the snakes as well. Furiel looking aggressive. Gustavo Ariel trying to get to the inside, but it's the run out of here into the parabolica where everyone's going to be careful. Thibaut Casabon not taking note.
No, not at all. I tell you what, Dane Warren, though, getting a very necessary start, though he does face pressure from a mouse. I tell you what, though, the Mercedes under distinct pressure as they make their way down through towards the hairpin at turn 6 as well. Thibaut Casabon had a look down the inside of Bono Huis outside of turn 3 as well. Jakub Brzezinski also going deep as well. Huis has got a lot to battle with as he heads out now this section. Very, very slow corner. You need to get yourself back on the throttle ASAP before you then make your way down towards Mercedes. But but look at the squabbling in behind.
Brzezinski and Kazabon with contact with one another. Tormula tries to get to the outside, but he's got to be careful. Kazabon has been so aggressive, and now maybe we'll try and lean around the outside to try and work on forward. Looking rearwards from that Mercedes-AMG Petronas car. Brzezinski's tucked in behind. The top two not really breaking away just yet, but Kazabon, all the hype that we've been giving him, a bit of a tough start here.
Well, it is a tough start, but he has been absolutely electric. It has to be said, he has been looking to make all the big moves. I think he came slightly unstuck, a touch in the rear, though, of Joni Tormula. That will certainly hinder that of the Audi R8 LMS, and he's got to be cautious because Gustavo Ariel is hot on his tail here.
Peter Berryman's up to 10th, but Jeffrey Rietveld has dropped to 12th. End of lap number 1, 10 expected here at the Hockenheim Ring. It's 7/10 that margin at the front that Dane Warren has been able to build up, but it's really here that we have to look. Pedro Sanchez Albert ducking and diving. Jeffrey Rietveld doesn't look for the move just yet. For Redline, it's been a difficult day. They cannot afford to stay back here.
No, not at all. You just see there the BMW BS Plus competition getting right into the mix. Peter Berryman, who's had to fight from the real tail end of the field as they come together again, 3 wide, turning through towards turns 2, 3 and 4 as they now peel outwards. Peter Berryman staying alive here. Jeffrey Rietveld in behind with Pedro Sanchez down in 12th place, currently watching all this unfold.
As it stands right now, it seems like the hopes of Team Redline, our spring season team champions, will not rest on Jeffrey Rietveld. They will rest on the shoulders of Enzo Benito. In through the Parabolica, once again they will dance 9/10 of a second at the front of the field. Dane Warren is building that advantage. It's behind where we're starting to see the pressure starting to build. Let's not forget in a 10-lap race here, around lap 7 is where we expect those Mercedes that run in 3rd and 4th position to really start to struggle.
Yeah, Oscar Bixford as well, having a mature drive. Joni Tormula, who we're currently riding on board with, in behind that of Jakub Brzezinski in P5. The gap currently within 4/10 of a second. We're going to take a look, though, at a replay. This being that of Thibaut Kazabon, who was right in the midst of all of this here, just letting the cars rumble on by as he now made his way down towards the hairpin, betting 3 wide heading through this segment. We've seen this time and time again. It always ends poorly, but they all manage to filter their way through safely.
I think Kazabon will have picked up a cut course there for running off the track, and so that's one of the 4 that you're allowed in 10 laps that will have gone and continued fighting. You see Brzezinski just shoves Kazabon wide. That's when Tormula went to the outside of the Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports entry, and eventually Tormula not able to get on through on Brzezinski, but does get the job done on Thibaut Kazabon. Really nice, tidy stuff initially, and then Kazabon tries to fight it back in the run into that final sector. Unfortunately, was unable to get things done. In through turn 2 once again. Dane Warren's breaking away. Moritz Lohner's looking in the rear-view mirror.
Certainly is. Joni Tormula, high IQ strat, did keep watching and waiting, looking for every opportunity to strike. Eventually did end up pulling it off, heading through Mercedes, but now gives chase as he makes his way up towards the rear of Jakub Brzezinski. In behind as well, we're seeing the Porsches. Of course, Dane Warren, though, however, the Porsche in front of this whole affair. There's Oscar Bixford, part of the heroic team as well. Very wide entry line, though, by the car that is 2 steps ahead of him. That's Thibaut Kazabon, I think, who might have made a mistake, heading through hairpin as they now venture their way down through towards Mercedes. There is Oscar Bixford, a young talent that is surely going to rise higher and higher and higher now as we're seeing some wheel-to-wheel action here, Arjuna. It certainly is, and the R8G is coming unstuck as we now see Kazabon under threat.
I think Kazabon tried to go around the outside of Gustavo Ariel through the Mercedes-Benz arena. Not really necessarily the ideal passing opportunity. Now, Jem Bullock-Bassi is going to be trying to get up the inside in that FaZe Clan Porsche, but you can look forward from Gustavo Ariel. A bit of a buffer has started just to form. End of lap number 3, we begin to cycle on through, and Dane Warren not being allowed to totally break away. Moritz Lohner, after what was a rather difficult start from Maus initially with Yuri Kastorp. Patrick Holtzman very much bringing the form. 4th and 2nd now. Moritz Lohner picking that up.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. Oscar Bixford again. I'm going to comment about how well he's driving. He's right behind Jem Bullock-Bassi. Of course, as we said before, former Formula 3 driver, Formula 2 driver as well, racing as well in the Super Formula Championship in Japan. A race winner in Euro Formula at Hungaroring as well, and has done some really, really special things with his career. Remember, he was formerly F1 Esports. That is how he got his entry as well into the world of sim racing, and has since then developed it and become such a peripheral figure in the world of motorsport and sim racing itself. Now comes home to roost here at ESL R1. There's Thibaut Kazabon as well in 7th place, currently chasing after Gustavo Ariel. Still a little bit of work to do, but he has impressed many, and despite losing a few places this time around, he will hold that victory. Well, certainly not the victory necessarily, but certainly very nearly kept it. Obviously, Jeffrey Rietveld coming in to take it away, as we now see them now come together again. Apex Racing getting tied up. Peter Berryman, who has been on a real charge here, Arjuna.
Yeah, he's trying to work his way from the back. Will be slightly frustrated with that, especially after the result in the previous race. But look at Bixrud sliding his way through the corner and holding on to the position, but crucially costing the two of them both a couple of car lengths. Looking backwards from Jem Bullock-Bassi. A point on something you mentioned, Jem Bullock-Bassi getting his introduction into sim racing by virtue of F1 esports. This sort of a LAN environment is nothing new to him, as it is for a couple of these drivers that bring so much of that experience. Moritz Lohner included. He has been relishing the atmosphere that he has been drawing and feeding off the energy with. He has also been able to build that buffer up to Bono House. That is very, very important. Like mentioned, the Mercedes a little bit more heavy on the front tires. They are going to understeer more as we head to the tail end of this race, and I was talking with Dara McCormack earlier. One reason why he is the only driver to have swapped groups for the team championship, he wanted to get away from Hockenheim and have a bit more luck.
Absolutely right indeed. Mercedes basking in the glory that James Baldwin, of course, led to them as well. A third place at Monza. They went to the Nürburgring and scored a second place as well. Bono, who's looking to deliver yet another podium to their name to add to their locker. Of course, Marco Pejic also delivering a third here at Hockenheim as well, as we now see them make their way down the famous Parabolica as well. Side-by-side action again, as we now see the Apex Racing team once again coming together. In comes, though, the Team Redline cars. We see Thibaut Casabon once again under pressure from the Furia car in behind.
Jeffrey Rietveld has really got to make some headway. Every point that he can get is going to be, for Enzo Benito, a little less work that he's got to do. Look up the road from Thibaut Casabon as well. That's 2.5 seconds that the front 5 cars have been able to pull, and that is the cost of fighting so hard. It's been great to watch Gustavo Ariel and Casabon have been putting on a show, but with Ariel making another small mistake, trying to go aggressive, we're really seeing that these drivers know that for the teams, these are their final opportunities to score their points, and it is very, very close for a lot of them.
It is, certainly. And Gustavo Ariel, not necessarily, well, while he's having a physical race, this isn't a bad showing for Team Furia. Obviously, points on the table. They will take some home. Of course, 6 points on the table here at this moment, should they take it at this point. They don't make their way through the final sector yet again. The Mercedes section, of course, heading through as well. The stadium section here at Hockenheimring as they come nose to tail still. Peter Berryman, who's currently on the rear of Jeffrey Rietveld, and of course has Oscar Bixrud in 9th place as well, as we now see them head down now towards turn 1 yet again. It's still, at this moment in time, Dane Warren holding on to the advantage. Has managed to stretch his advantage out to over 0.8 of a second. Bono Hoos as well in 3rd, with Brzezinski in 4th as they look to try and marshal an effort. Brzezinski, though, doing exceptionally well because Tormola's in behind and still threatening.
Yeah, only Tormola one that I think we really saw a lot from in the spring season in that G2 esports car, and so right now a really good spot for him to be able to leap forward on board with Oscar Bixrud, though, in the heroic car. Yeah,
absolutely right indeed, as we now see them look to come down towards now the very, very sharp end at turn 6, of course, coming together now as they make their way through. Still Oscar Bixrud and able to certainly try and challenge as they now make their way around, just keeping our eyes peeled for this one to see what happens. Bixrud forced to stay in behind that of Jem Bullock-Bassi, the phase driver, doing enough. The professional driver who's been in many scraps before. Bixrud, though, threatening right as they head through towards Mercedes. A beautiful switchback, though, from Bixrud, the Norwegian. Now looking to try and challenge again, but he can't quite do it this time.
Two precocious superstars in the making, fighting wheel to wheel, and more contact between the two. Bullock-Bassi's going to get shoved wide. Rietveld will take it 3 wide, and the BMW for Team Redline now tries to compromise Oscar Bixrud as well. Rietveld has grabbed 8th place in that final sector.
Yep, stellar move indeed. Jem Bullock-Bassi now being, wow, literally assaulted here on the left-hand side. Oscar Bixrud really challenging him. What a young, tenacious character this is. He's not scared of these figures here in sim racing as they rumble over the curbs, heading through the final corner yet again. And Jem Bullock-Bassi may live to fight another day against Bixrud, but certainly if you're Jeffrey Rietveld, you're loving life. You gambled, you took the places. You're now into P8 as he chases after Gustavo Ariel for that 7th.
These are valuable points, as mentioned, for Redline. Will not want to be eliminated on the first day of competition. Peter Berryman was on the grass, then went ultra aggressive to try and cover off Pedro Sanchez Albert. Oscar Bixrud on the receiving end of the shove, but fortunately that heroic Porsche able to hold on. And for heroic, these are Battles that they will want Oscar Bixler to try and avoid. Heroic on 39 points, Mouse on 47 points, the final car in the top 6.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. Pedro Sanchez Albert, 12th place, now soon to be 11th as they run wheel to wheel again, heading down through towards turn 6 still at the hairpin. Oscar Bixler once again watching all this at full contact now between all three of them, as you saw the Apex Racing car of Peter Berryman just touching the back of Oscar Bixler's car. He's now broke away clear, and credit to Berryman managing to marshal off that attack from Sanchez as he retains P11 at the expense there of the BMW, but he comes straight back at him here at the Mercedes section. Once again, no, Pedro Sanchez unable to unlock him like a tin of beans as now they head through this next right yet again, and still now as they crawl down through towards the Mercedes Arena section, it is still Sanchez down at the bottom end.
Coming to 3 laps to go, and with Dane Warren still under pressure from Moritz Lohner, I want to cycle back to day 1 of the Drivers' Championship. We called Group C the toughest of the groups. What did Josh Rogers do? He just went out there and won both races, and not just won them, dominated them.
No, absolutely right. He is absolutely stellar. He is sensational, can deliver too, as we now see them make their way through towards turn 1. There's Bono Hoos, who is certainly also just as experienced as many of these others, perhaps more in many ways as well in the world of sim racing. He will not be faced by certainly the gravitas of this event, despite how massive it really is. But this, again, brings out the best in the drivers. Bono Hoos arguably maybe not showing the best that we're used to seeing from him in the certainly the last number of broadcasts we've certainly had here at ESL R1. Certainly since that of Katowice, but now here this time at Riyadh as he battles here at the Gamers 8, makes his way down through towards turn 6 at hairpin, and he'll have to try and marshal off. But look at this, the Williams now in trouble as Jakub Brzezinski still retains 4th with Tormala very close to his tail.
And again, I'll just reiterate what I mentioned earlier, that at the Hockenheimring, we expect the Mercedes to lose its tires around lap 6 or 7, and so the fact that on lap 8 we are still seeing Bono House as well as Brzezinski being able to defend is rather impressive. You can sense though for that Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports number 9 that there is that increased pressure that continues to come, and Tormala in the BMW seems hungry to try and make a move.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed as they venture out of turn 6 now in towards now this next right-hander. They're coming in out of turn 11 now in towards Sachs curve. The Williams getting so dangerously involved with that gravel trap as well. Yoni Tormala will see that as an invitation as they now head through towards turn 12, 13 coming up next, 14 as they venture through the final slalom section. Of course, penultimate lap will be coming up next. Dane Warren is checking out here, very nearly a second clear at the expense of Moritz Lohner in second, but he's also checked out ahead of Bono Hoos as well, who is not far away from 9/10 of a second ahead of Jakub Brzezinski. So Tormala now at the crux of the issue. This is the fight now building up for that 4th place, and Tormala will not go down without a fight.
Coming into this one, RAG 98 points, Mercedes-AMG Petronas 60 points, Porsche Coanda and Redline timed on 55. Out of those 4, 3 of them look like they will well, 2 of them, excuse me, will add some decent points. RAG don't necessarily need the points as they run right now. It is Team Redline that we would expect to be slipping backwards for Jakub Brzezinski, running well in a Mercedes-AMG Williams Esports team that has come into this race with 52 points. After this, let's not forget that it's another couple of interesting tracks for these drivers to contend with, but it's a BMW on BMW affair. Jeffrey Rietveld dives it down the inside of Gustavo Ariel, as easy as you'd like.
Yeah, very smooth indeed. Nothing that Gustavo Ariel can do about that. Jeffrey Rietveld doing what he does best now as we see more battling now in between that of the phase car. I think that's Jem Bollet-Bassi who's in the fight with Oscar Bixrud. Just in behind them, they've got Peter Berryman right in behind these two as well. So they've got a 3-way fight now as they head down towards Mercedes Arena. Again, the phase driver forced to go defensive as now we see Bixrud trying to take the aggressive line down the inside. Can't quite marshal an effort as they now make their way through, though. Bixrud in trouble. Here comes Berryman on the attack.
And those 2 Porsches seem very, very evenly matched. Just the way that they're able to fight, the way they're able to close on each other. Very, very impressive stuff. Berryman's not going to be able to get it done on the entry into the final sector. Switches back to the outside. Bold place to be with how little grip there can be through this arena stadium section, and finally settles back into line for the time being. 1.3 at the front, though, for Dane Warren, who crosses over onto the final lap of the race here in the first race of Group C.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. Of course, now as they come towards the tail end of this Hockenheimring Fiesta, it has been absolutely superb. Jeffrey Rietveld will not, though, take a second victory in conjunction with what he scored at Monza as well. 25 points will be going elsewhere, and currently it's looking like it's going to go by the way of Porsche Coanda. Of course, Dane Warren will treasure it as now we see Yoni Tormala now make his way down through towards the Parabolica at turn 5 in full view. Dead ahead of him here as well. He has got got Jakub Brzezinski, who's been well, basically seeing a full rear end of Williams now for quite some time. That Mercedes-AMG GT3 that has been holding on to that fourth place looks certainly well marshalled as they make their way out of turn 6.
I think Bono House went very, very wide through the parabolica there. And one thing that I'm seeing from Joni Tormala is Brzezinski struggling on the tires, but Tormala doesn't seem to have the top speed. We talked about that a lot from the BMWs to be able to close even in the double toe.
No, not at all. He needs to try and find something in the corners here as well. But this is where the Mercedes can be oh so effective. Of course, Kuba Brzezinski, who certainly has that ability to defend. This is where the Mercedes starts to use its muscle. As now they head through now in towards the final sector. There will be certainly no usurping Dane Warren. He's leading through now 1.3 clear. He is having a stellar race here. We talk about his quali pace, but how about his race pace?
It's becoming a familiar sight at this point. The Porsche Coanda Esports team on top at ESL R1, sponsored by Aramco. It's Dane Warren, the Australian, that will take another race victory for the Porsche number 57. It's another punch of the fist. It's a double podium for Warren. He's done exactly what he needed to do for the German manufacturer.
Well, a smile on his face, it paints a picture. And certainly for Porsche Coanda, it's celebration. And certainly here with the fireworks, they get one step closer to the finals. And certainly tomorrow, we are going to be in for a treat. We've got plenty more action to bring you, though, folks. There's going to be more fireworks as we make our way through the evening. But it's all about that man, Dane Warren. He lights up Porsche Coanda with another 25 points.
And another pump of the fist. He looks relatively calm, all things considered, but he'll be delighted with the performance that we've seen from him today, able to deliver at both Monza as well as at the Hockenheim Ring. Next up, of course, for Porsche Coanda is going to be the other Australian, Joshua Rogers, looking for some redemption after just missing out on a Drivers' Championship yesterday. We'll get to talk to Dane in just a couple of moments' time, but with Group C and now 3 of the drivers in the books, we are increasingly shaking up to understand how our team championship plays out. Provisionally, it's R8G, Porsche Coanda, Mercedes-AMG Petronas, Maus, Williams, and Redline that are your top 6. Will Race Control have something more to say? We'll have to wait and see. Not necessarily sure there was too much in that last race to take a look at, but it was Rietveld trying to make some moves.
It certainly was. Rietveld then coming in very aggressive in towards the chicane section where he made contact with Peter Berryman was just in front of all this, but of course they had the BMW plus BS competition car right alongside them as well. That, of course, being Pedro Sanchez, but Rietveld managing to loft himself forward, did try to hold on to the, should we say, the effective P11 spot, heading down towards the hairpin, consolidated that, but you do have to wonder whether that might be looked at later.
Yeah, absolutely. This is for Redline in particular, are points they do not want to bleed. Rietveld at the back of the field very much had to work on forward with the elbows out. Once he was able to clear some of the fighting, though, that was when he was finally able to settle into a rhythm, and that's when we got to see Jem Bullock-Bassi and Oscar Bichterud start to go at it. Yeah,
they went at it for quite some time, and you can see they made contact. Rietveld then really snagged on the opportunity, sent it down the inside, and what a move that is, heading through towards turn 11. You can appreciate it more now in a replay context, heading in towards the left-hander through the stadium section at Sachs Curve. That was a stellar move.
It was sublime, and from there, as the 2 Porsches squabbled, Berryman watching on, the Redline BMW would pull away, and then on the very final lap, look to the inside of Gustavo Ariel. But let's go down to the stage where once again Dane Warren is ready to chat with our hosts.
Dane Warren, how you going, mate?
I'm pretty good, mate. How's the family?
Yeah, family's great. I told you I'd do it. Yeah. You know what, man? What a great race. I just want to get your opinion on it, really. Hockenheim, absolutely fantastic. You seemed like you were pretty much in cruise control. You had a decent lead. Like, did you feel pretty comfortable?
I'm glad it looked that way from the outside, because on the inside I was freaking out. I ran out of incidents with, I think, 2 or 3 laps to go, so it was just a thing of keeping it clean and bringing it to the end.
فعلا بعد ما سألنا عن المتسابق قلنا له انه كيف كان السباق بشكل عام. هو جدا سعيد انه طلع من كل الحوادث اللي صارت حتى بالاصح، والحمد لله انه ما صار له اي شيء، فجدا يعني يشكر الجميع على اللي صار فعلا وقدر يحقق النصر في هذا السباق.
We've done all you can do here. You've done your 2 races. Congratulations on the win. You got one more Porsche Coanda driver to step up to the plate and try and put some more points on the board. Have you got any words of wisdom for good old Josh?
I don't think I have any words for Josh. He is the man. You know, we saw it yesterday. I'm sure he can do some crazy things. So yeah, just sit back and watch, see the man do what he does best.
بالضبط، ثقته بالفريق جدا عاليه. سالنا فيها المتسابق انه خلاص الحين سوى اللي عليه، لكن باقي المتسابق اللي بعده من نفس فريقه اللي هو المتسابق جوش، فايش حاب يقول له؟ قال ان انا واثق فيه بشكل جدا عالي، وانا متاكد انه راح يؤدي اداء جدا ممتاز، خصوصا ان فريقه الحين جمع نقاط، بيلعبون في السباق الاخير في المجموعه الاخيره بشكل مرتاح اكثر، فيقول استمتعوا في اللي راح يقدمه لنا جوش.
Well, Dane, it is my pleasure to announce to you that with that win, Porsche Coanda goes into second place on the leaderboard, pretty much guaranteeing a spot tomorrow, but let's not speak too soon. Congratulations on the win. Well done. Go and celebrate with your team. And for now, we're going to throw it over to the desk to break everything down before we invite our final group of drivers down to the main stage.
صحيح، بعد ما اخذنا المقابله حاب اكد لكم ان الحين فريق بورش كواندا قدروا يضمنون التاهل تقريبا، وصاروا في المركز الثاني الحين في المجموعات، لكن ما نحتفل بشكل سريع، خلينا ننتقل على طول على الاستديو ونشوف السباقات الاخيره اللي معنا.